Well, hello. Welcome again to Facebook Live. This is Dr. Sherman Silber from the Infertility Center, St. Louis, and we've got a very special surprise for you today. As you know, we're going to answer any questions you may have, but first, take a look at Roz and Bo.
Yay.
They can tell you their story, but it's very important. This is the bottom line. Nowadays, women and men too are not too quick to have babies when they're young. They don't even want to get married when they're young. They want to really make sure it's the right partner, and they take a long time. And that's a good thing because we can live to 100 now and still be young when we're in our 80s, like I am. So that's a good thing. The problem is that the ovary doesn't know that. And so between the ages of 30 and 40, the eggs begin to go downhill, more the age 35 and 40. And so Roz is an example of this successful way to deal with this sort of change in society, a change in our lives. So I don't know, Roz, why don't you tell them how long have I known you?
Probably since 2007, 2008. So what is that, 17
Yeah,
years?
a
When
long,
I
yeah.
was probably 23 or 24. So I knew you in a professional capacity. I was a young fundraiser going all over the country, kind of put relationships on hold, putting down roots on hold, everything on hold, so I could kind of build my career in politics, which is obviously how we met. And I remember, again, this was probably more than 10, about 10 years ago. You were like, you should freeze your eggs. Like, this is the right thing to do. And it was really one of those things before people talk about it like they do now. So I was like, oh, Dr. Silber, like, but then you like got me thinking about it. And I was like, well, maybe he's right. I should do that thing. So we did about 4 rounds. And I think at the end of the day, we had about 25
Yes, right,
eggs.
right.
And then I didn't meet my husband, Bo, behind me right here. And that's our daughter, Vivi. We have twins. Um, until I was 35. In fact, he came with me to my last egg freezing. And when you walked in the room, we'd only been dating a couple of months, but you were like, oh, are we doing embryos today? And I was like, I know you, but not quite yet.
Yeah. So you didn't actually meet Bo until you were at that age where the eggs are beginning to go downhill anyway, really. And,
Correct.
and of course, nowadays, I mean, you don't just marry the first guy you meet. I mean, you have to really get to know them and to feel this is the right thing to do and discriminate carefully. So
Yeah.
you're not really to have ready to have babies anyway until 5 years after you think you've met your soulmate, and by then you're 40 years old.
And probably without you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's so many, obviously we have our daughter and our son, who's not here right now. And, they're absolutely incredible, just miracles, both of them. But I mean, there are certain things about freezing your eggs that, you know, you don't feel like you have to stay with the wrong person because this might be your last chance, you know?
Right.
And I think for that, it's incredibly freeing. And then also having the time to be stable in your career, stable in your life. And yeah, it's
I,
been just a real blessing.
I remember when we first met, and I mean, you were definitely younger. I have to say, girl, maybe that's not the right term,
I was a
you
child,
know, but
basically
you were certainly under 30.
23 or 24, I think.
And all I can think about when I see young women that are 23 or 24 is maybe they should freeze their eggs because I can predict they're not likely to wind up getting married till they're over 35.
Yeah. I feel like such an evangelist too. I'm like, if anyone asks me about freezing my eggs, I'm like, do it now. Just do it now. Don't think if you're even thinking about it, just do it now.
And, you and Bob Clark, I won't mention names at all, uh, sent several patients our way that wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, their choice was really, are they going to continue their career, which in your case of your friends was a fabulous career,
Mhm.
uh, or are they just going to go ahead and get pregnant now? And they didn't have to make that choice if they just froze their eggs.
Yeah. And that's really you know, that's the best part is that I feel it kind of is the step to like true equality. Like as a woman, you have to make all these choices and it doesn't have to be this binary choice anymore.
I remember you came with your mom, I guess several times, and I
Mm,
remember one of the times I think we only got 4 eggs at that time.
mhm.
We wound up adding up to 25 eggs before
Yeah,
it was done.
amazing.
But I remember you were really crying because you were so
Yeah.
worried this wasn't going to work. But the thing is, if we can just get those eggs under age 35,
Hmm.
they're fantastic eggs. It will work.
Yeah, and I think in our journey, I mean, we probably tried for what, 2 years before the eggs, and I obviously it's a very emotional process. Every piece of it still is, um, but there was never a time where I was so hopeless either, even though we weren't getting pregnant naturally, because I was like, okay, well, then I'm very much pragmatic type A. Like, okay, well, then what's the next step? What's the next thing we do? And just having that next step out there, I think was very comforting during the whole process.
And before 2003, we couldn't do this very successfully.
Really?
Yeah, because it was the only method of freezing was for embryos, slow freeze we call it with a machine. And 70% of all of us is water. We
Hmm.
are all 70% water. And so when you freeze the eggs and the water inside becomes ice, it expands like ice cubes float at
Hmm.
the top of a soda. And so that ice crystal expansion destroys your cells. So we had a method, slow freeze they call it, of gradually extracting about half of the water out of your eggs so that your eggs were only, say, 30% water instead of 70% water. It worked for about half of the embryos because they're smaller cells, but for eggs, which is a big cell, it never worked. And
Yeah.
it was only when vitrification came along, invented originally by Dr. Koyama in Japan, that we were actually able to freeze eggs because now we're not making ice cubes inside your cells. We're just making it solidify without forming ice. And so we could freeze an egg and thaw an egg and freeze it and thaw it 24 times in a day, every hour, and it would still be okay. It's
Well, that's
Amazing.
pretty
that's great
amazing.
news.
And that really started in 2003. When we first brought it to the United States, people were poo-pooing it. They were laughing at us. And I just had to say to all of them, well, even for embryos, this is like virtually 100% instead of 50% successful. So if you want to continue doing slow freezing, we have several slow freeze machines in the basement that we're willing to sell you really cheap. And it created a bit of a stir at the Fertility Society
I
meeting
love it.
when I said that.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we obviously this road has not been, nothing in life is terribly easy, but at every corner, it's like we just feel so grateful and so many blessings, and yeah, we still have, I believe we still have some blastocysts and embryos.
Oh, yes, you can have a bigger family if you want.
I don't know. These twins have, I don't know. We probably aged about 15 years in the last couple months.
For
So,
sure.
Well,
we'll see.
you know what? We can save it because seriously, spend your time focusing the first 5 years of life on these kids, and give them all your attention, and that pays off later in terms of personality and character and
Mhm.
intelligence, emotional stability. Just do that. You're in no hurry now.
No,
We've still got 30-year-old embryos that'll
yeah.
get pregnant very quickly, and you can have another baby when you're 45.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's up to you, but if you might feel the empty nest when these kids go off to college. You might want another baby at 50. Who knows?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That'll definitely definitely be the case.
Instead of getting a dog, you can have more babies.
Yeah. Well, well, this
Oh, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean. I didn't actually. The truth is that dogs and babies go hand in hand very beautifully. So I didn't mean to insult your daughter. Gosh, I apologize. I messed
no,
up
no.
on that one.
But yeah, I mean, I think, there's so many in terms of try and you hear about your friends like, "Oh, in the first month, like, I got pregnant right away, and, you know, we're barely trying at all." And, um, and everyone's journey is different, and people have had easier journeys than us, people have certainly had harder journeys than us, and through every you know yeah, at that one time I only got like one or two eggs, but I know there's folks out there that go through several rounds, and um that's their outcome, and then you only need one to make a baby at the end of the day.
Well, right, and of course you had some frightening moments because the first time you got pregnant with one of these frozen eggs, it
Two.
resulted in a miscarriage, or
Yeah.
two of the embryos, but it resulted in a miscarriage, and that does happen. But the beauty of it is that if you just stick with it, and we have enough, we know we had 25 eggs is plenty from
Yeah.
35 or under, and so you were terrified and crying, but we knew that we would eventually have a good result.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just hard to trust the math when there's so much emotion involved.
That's true.
Exactly right.
But it's
Math doesn't mean anything when you have a miscarriage. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, percentages don't it's if it happens half the time and it's the downside half the time, it's still no fun to go through.
Well, right. See, I'm just a clinical statistician. So, with eggs that were 35 or under, we know you've got a 65% chance every time we transfer just one blastocyst. Two blastocysts would be 84%. And then finally, we transferred two more, and you have twins. So out of four blastocysts, it makes sense that you would have two babies,
Yeah.
at the time.
It's kind of like online dating. It's just a numbers game, and you have to stick with it.
You just got to stick.
That's how we met.
Is that how you met? Oh,
Yeah.
So
One day you'll just swipe right on those eggs and
So
your kids.
Roz met exactly the right guy, as far as I'm concerned, because a long, long time ago, I was a bush pilot when I was a young doctor, but I never really got to be a really good, super duper, like instrument rated commercial pilot. And so Bo and I had a chance to talk a lot. I really am a pilot wannabe.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I know you helped his skiing. He bought the ski book that you recommended
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's the ski book you mean by Jose Tejada, Florida?
skiing the edge or something like that.
There's nothing like that for skiing. It's the best book, and even the later editions aren't as good as the first edition. Very, very simple little tricks like ski only on one ski.
Yeah,
And you tell a beginner that, and if they can focus on that, then everything else comes naturally. Yeah,
Like everything, you just have to practice. You just have to get in the swing of it.
that's right. Well, okay, so maybe are there any, Tony? Are there any questions people want to direct to Roz and Bo or to me?
Okay, Dr. Silber, at this point, no, we haven't gotten any questions in yet, but I do have a couple from the archive if you'd like to answer those.
Well, sure. And if they're directed to people that are worried about their eggs getting older, then Roz or Bo can even chime in.
Yeah, I'm 41, or I'll be 41, and Bo will be 44 this year. So
she was 41, and they were trying without using her frozen eggs for several years just to get pregnant naturally. But, over the age of 35, the eggs get less and less fertile. And so the vast majority of patients in IVF clinics now are certainly over 35. In fact, the majority of them are over 40.
Oh, wow.
They just froze their eggs before 35, and it'd be a piece of cake. But
so here we have our first question for this evening. And let's see here. So, Dr. Silber, how soon will we know that the embryos are viable after egg retrieval?
Well, okay, so you really don't know for sure. The first thing you know is the next day fertilization rate. I'm going to brag for right now. We have a group of fantastic embryologists from really around the world that are just the best. And normally the fertilization rate, if you're over 70%, that's good. Our fertilization rate now is 88.5%, and that's including women on average age of 42. So that's the first thing you want to know is if the eggs fertilize the next day. But then 2 days after that, or day 3, we'll see if we have good day 3 embryos. Now, if the embryos look not so great, we won't freeze them on day 3. We'll culture them longer. And then we have blastocysts on day 5 or 6. So you won't know for sure how the viability of those eggs until you see the embryos that develop for them up to 6 days later. And we freeze them then, and we always transfer them later. Sorry, go ahead.
She's a blastocyst, and her brother.
She's a blastocyst, right? And the brother's a blastocyst too, right? So, for eggs that are under 35, we'll culture most of them now to blastocysts. For eggs that are over 40, we'll strive for day 3, unless there are many of them. So I hope that answers your question. But you're looking at one blastocyst, and her brother's a blastocyst too.
So, Dr. Silber, let's see here. We have your next question is from Carmen, and she asks, are there any types of food someone who is 42 should focus on? I am planning on doing a transfer in a couple of months.
Well, okay, everybody asks that question because you don't want to be on an unhealthy diet that you feel would hurt your chances. Well, I'll be really blunt that I don't think the diet is a major effect on the success rate. However, you want to be healthy. For the rest of your life, you want to be healthy. And I have very simple advice for that. There was a big study in a book about that thick by a doctor. It's very, very carefully done. There's not a lot of really reliable books on nutrition. Many nutrition books are just fads and people that aren't really professional. But he studied everything. And oddly enough, if you want to get all of the nutritional elements you need in your diet, you want to eat a multicolored diet. Green and orange and purple and white and brown and red. Just a multicolored diet and that's mostly vegetables, will wind up giving you all the nutrients you need. Of course, you've got chicken that's light brown or tan, and you've got beef that's deep brown. So this is not like a vegetarian diet. It's just that a lot of those multiple colors really will come out of the vegetable portion of your diet. So I would avoid any nutritional supplements. For legal reasons, we want you all to take multivitamins, just ordinary prenatal multivitamins. But I'll be quite honest, if you have a multicolored diet, you really don't need to do that. But for legal reasons, we have to make you stay on those. Otherwise, if you had any problems, why didn't we put you on vitamins? But frankly, a multicolored diet will give you all the nutrition that you really need. And I'd avoid any other kind of nutritional fads.
Okay, Dr. Silber, your next question is a 2-part question here. The first part is, hi, Dr. Sherman Silber. And then she has some terms here that I am not familiar with. So
you're familiar with cerclage, and cerclage be done before tocolytics and antibiotics. So let me explain what she's talking about. And I think Roz could pipe in on this also. So if someone has a premature contractions, so there's a risk of premature labor, there are tocolytic drugs that can suppress those reactions. But if she has a incompetent cervix, then there's no choice but to do a stitch around the cervix and close it tight. But you don't want to do that once she started in labor. Once she started in labor, that's not, well, you could do it, but it's not going to work. So if you suspect a incompetent cervix, like from a previous LEAP procedure, for example, if you expect an incompetent cervix, then by 14 weeks, you should do the cerclage before there's any risk of premature labor. But Roz, I'm not an OB. Tell me what your experience was.
Of course, I didn't. Every part of our journey has been a miracle. So I went in. I was just writing this down actually because it's been such a whirlwind. I went into labor on the day that I turned 28 weeks,
Ooh.
And it was back labor, and I was like, well, they talk about, there's studies that like women aren't listened to in healthcare. Like I wasn't listening to myself. I was like, it's sciatica, it's Braxton Hicks. But we got to triage in Chicago, and they were like, we're going to try and stop your labor. But my son was just determined to come on out. But they were able to give a steroid shot to bolster the baby's lungs. And they were in there. She was in there. which is pretty standard for 28-week preemies to stay in until their due date. She actually got out about 10 days before
Yeah,
her due date.
she was almost 2 weeks
Yeah.
prior.
So how many weeks did she deliver at? When?
So I delivered at 28 weeks on the dot.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's really modern prenatal care and fantastic, really.
Every part of our story, like, is like the fact that these are, we don't know which eggs they came from, if it was 30 or 35, but that these babies are possibly from already 10 years old,
Mhm.
and that they were over 2 pounds. We made it to 28 weeks, and they just had to grow a little bigger and stronger at the NICU in Chicago.
Well, let me ask you, you started having contractions at 20 weeks. Were they able to hold that off till 28 weeks?
No, I didn't have contractions at 20. I started having contractions, and I delivered at 28.
Oh, so it started at 28, and that was it. They couldn't really stop it then.
They
Yeah.
tried to slow it down, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Bo, I was kind of out of it, so Bo could probably talk about it better.
we got about 6 extra hours out of the drugs.
So it's really amazing. So these 1.5 and 2 pound babies in the NICU, they develop and they grow up to be super intelligent, fantastic kids. There's, no negative impact from it.
Well, I think they come out and they have to push a little harder than other kids. And the only thing is, our son's in the NICU right now, and you have to pass a bunch of milestones. You have to breathe on your own, eat on your own. And it's not that he doesn't know how to eat. He definitely can. He's just like, can't be bothered right now.
Well,
It's
I'm
real
sure he will be, and he'll be just fine. That's really exciting. But in terms of the question that was asked, the tocolytic agents really didn't work for you, but luckily you were at 28 weeks. We try to get them to 32 weeks, but at 28 weeks, that's fantastic. And what didn't apply to you is there are some women that have an incompetent cervix, and we know about it ahead of time, and they should have a cerclage done at 14 weeks, and that'll really protect the cervix from opening up and losing the baby that way. Because then, if at 20 weeks the cervix opens up, it's too late to do a cerclage. But that doesn't apply to you. You didn't have that.
I did have fibroids, though, if anybody. We did take care of that before the first transfer.
Yeah. How? No, wait a second. I don't remember that. We did the fibroid before the transfer.
Before the first transfer, but I saw your partner.
Dr. DeRosa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And he did the fibroid. Okay. Yeah. It's good to get rid of those fibroids before the transfer. That's really
So that was another blessing to take care of.
That's another reason we don't want to freeze the embryos for IVF, because very often we have to take care of a polyp or a fibroid or multiple fibroids, or maybe the lining isn't that great. So as long as you have that embryo frozen in a way that is safe and reliable, so we don't do any damage when we freeze the embryos now with vitrification. There's zero damage. So that way you can make sure the uterus is most receptive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So I only have a couple of more minutes because I have to run to a meeting. Roz, do you have any questions?
I don't. I'm just, I guess if anybody's questioning whether or not to go forward and do this, I would, obviously my whole life is wrapped up in this. I probably would have, maybe been with a man that was not my partner, was not as wonderful as this guy here, because I thought, that was my last chance to have kids. We wouldn't have these beautiful children, and I wouldn't have been able to work on my career. And it's just,
You were comfortably able to wait for the right guy.
Exactly.
And then when you didn't get pregnant naturally, the right guy, you really didn't have to worry about it because you had these young eggs all ready to go.
There was always hope. There was never really any despair, I think. And we were able to get to know each other at a normal pace and, date and not, rush ourselves. By the time we had these children, we very much wanted them. We were ready for them, and, pretty cute.
And for my 2 cents, the amount of effort that we did to get them here helped carry us through. 100 days in the NICU is tough to do.
Yeah.
But that silver lining always kept us in good spirits, and it's amazing how what you guys do on the medical side of things to get these guys here and healthy and happy, and it's what we always wanted.
Well, I'm amazed how you pilots can, because I love flying, how you guys can take off in the dark and have no idea where we are, and you know where we are, and you land in the dark. I mean, it could be raining and miserable outside, and
A bunch of people way smarter than me figured all that out. They just showed me how to use it.
I'm amazed how Lindbergh was able to do that the first time in 1927. Well, all right. It's great talking with you. And Tony, is there any other burning question, or can we close up now?
Yes, Dr. Silber, we can wrap it up.
Okay, so wrap it up. I'm Dr. Sherman Silber. I've been here with Roz and Bo talking about their two babies and the egg freezing that she did before she was 35, so that she could feel comfortable that she'd be able to pick the right partner and wait until she was 41 to really have these wonderful kids. And she's got more embryos available. So, I mean, when she's 45 or 50 and feels like the kids need siblings, she can just go have more kids. It'll be easy.
Exactly. Easy peasy. Easy for you.
It's all easy for me. It's hard. Everything is on the woman. It's easy for Bo too. He only had to contribute 2 minutes of time to this.
Yeah.
At any rate, so anybody can call us at 314-576-1400 anytime, or you can go to our website, and we'll always be glad to do free consultations for anybody. So it's Dr. Silber from St. Louis and Roz and Bo from Chicago, and we're signing off now.
Thanks, Dr. Silber.